Where do you find God? Almost sounds like a loaded question, doesn't it? I mean, if God was someone you could find, wouldn't everyone be out searching? Well, rather than looking for something elusive, like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I reckon it's more about learning to recognise the way God is already present to us in our everyday lives. I'm Lizzie Oakes, and this is Where Do You Find God? My guest on the podcast today is Thomas Wynne. Now, Thomas has a broad career spanning education, social justice, justice reform, prisons, governance, diplomacy, and foreign affairs, both here in Aotearoa and across the Pacific. His current role is focused on growing and developing the people of the moana who serve and work at the Department of Internal Affairs. Kia orana, Thomas. Welcome to Where Do You Find God?
Good, Anna. Good to be here and share this space with you.
I just learned something really interesting about you because I think at the moment I'm talking to you in Wellington. You're in Wellington and I'm in Auckland. Is that correct?
That's correct, despite the virtual backdrop, which looks like the Cook Islands.
Indeed, but you just...
I'm actually in very cold Wellington.
But you just told me that you do actually...
You're in the Cook Islands. Yeah.
Right, so you're bouncing between the two places and being able to do that kind of keeps you sane, I imagine.
Yeah, it's a really good way to fill my cup again and to do the work that I do, and not to let being here sort of consume me.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, Thomas. I'd love to hear some other things from you.
Yep, I'm a father of 5 adult children. I've got 11 grandchildren. Been married twice. The second marriage has been really amazing, and I'm really enjoying that. I'm really enjoying being a grown-up. I've got my parents are both migrants. Mum, of course, is from the Cook Islands and my dad is from Ireland. So I'm a Cook Irelander.
Ah, that's lovely ancestry.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I got to play a bit of sport in England with an Irish passport as an Irishman, which was really interesting.
That's cool. And just in my introduction of you, you've had a lot of different experiences in your life, right? Like you've moved in different areas. What would you say is the driving force and motivation behind what you do and how you choose to live your life, Thomas?
I guess equity really touches my heart, and when we don't have a sense of equity, I think everyone has a right to an equitable life, and my faith is very much a part of that equity. And that's not that, some people are born rich and some are born poor. Some, as even in Jesus' time, were born into slavery, and some were emperors. Nonetheless, there's equity in where we live and the spaces that we occupy, and that we not only experience that equity, but we ensure that others have that equity also.
Mm. Thomas, how's
that from?
I love that. I love that answer. Thomas, in Acts chapter 17, verse 27, it says, God intended that they would seek him and reach out for him and find him, though he be not far from each one of us. So my question for you today, Thomas, is where do you find God?
Yeah, great question. Well, of course, my experience with God is that he found me first, and I guess that's sort of been the crux of our relationship. He sought me out, which was in my life, my finding him is in the overflow of that. So I very much have spent a life responding to that. But if we're talking about moments that we experience and see God, I guess for me, most definitely when I'm with my grandchildren and I see eternity, I see a life well past myself that I won't experience, see or hear. And there've been moments when I've sat with my grandchildren. I've got 11 grandchildren. The oldest is 12 and the youngest is just over a year. And there's been moments when I've sat with my grandchildren and I've thought to myself, you will see a world that I won't see, and you will live well beyond me. But I get to feel what God feels in that moment, and that I experience eternity with you. And I thought I experienced that with my children, and I did. But I experienced it at a deeper level again with my grandchildren. And I think what God shows up in those spaces because he reminds me of the fact that he thinks intergenerationally, and that my moment in time with him is not just about where I find him, but where I find him and then I share him, and then he continues that story well past me. So my grandchildren most definitely is where I see that, and my children too. I find God also in my children and grandchildren when I'm confronted with my own humanity, in the way that I raised them, and that we invariably wound our children with the wound that we experience, and we, endeavor to build better human beings with them. And I see God in that most definitely, in that when my daughter says to me, "Dad, life's just not fair," and my God response to her is, "You're correct."
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I find God in those moments. There was a time I remember, actually, my daughter was living with me in the Cook Islands, and we were heading to church, and she came reluctantly, but she came anyway. She came anyway. And she said, "Oh, Dad, could you brush my hair?" And I was like, "Yes, of course." And she's like, 20, 28. And as she stood in front of me and I was brushing her hair, I was thinking back to when she was a child, and I used to do that for her. And when she turned around, I was quite emotional. And it's those moments that I experience God as my Father at the deepest level, because he gives me just moments where I can understand the eternity of his love for me as my Father.
Yeah. I can feel, I can hear your emotion there. I can feel your emotion. Is it for you in those moments, is it a kind of a redemptive moment? Is that what you're kind of saying? Or are you saying something else?
Yeah. I feel like, God sort of embraces my humanity in those moments. He says to me that it's going to be okay. He reminds me that he's sovereign. He, assures me that his grace is absolutely sufficient. And in those moments, I understand his grace deeper than I could in any sermon or church service or religious activity. And that's simply in the deepest of relationships we have, and those are with our families and our children and our partner and those. And those are the moments where I find God most, I guess, viscerally within my bones, is those. So much so that if you asked me the question, I went there almost immediately when I had to think about it.
Yeah. So if you have moments of regret in your life, Thomas, and I might be going off on the wrong tangent, but in a moment of, I don't know, reflection and maybe regret, where is God in that with you, for you?
That's a great question. Probably closer than ever, I find. One of the most dangerous drugs I've ever come across and seen as an adult is not found in a pharmaceutical factory or made illicitly, and its power. It's the ability to lead and to have some control or some direction over people's lives. And I've worked very much in those circles, and I've seen it to be the most dangerous of drugs. I don't think it corrupts people. I think people are corrupt anyway. It just gives it light and opportunity to grow. So coming back to your question, I think the remedy or the remedy for that is humility, and the remedy for that is found in understanding the redemptive nature of God as our Father, and really staying in that sweet spot with him.
Lovely.
And I find with my children, most definitely God reminds me of my brokenness and, my need for him and that redemptive work. And as much as it hurts sometimes, some of the, some of the things when we're reminded of our own selves. When we come to face with ourselves, it's redemptive, but it gives us a good dose of humility, and I love that. I feel very, very close to God, and I feel like he turns up in those moments.
So in those moments that you're describing and that God turns up, what is that God like?
I feel in those moments, like if I had to talk about it as a visceral or physical experience, I feel like the wind blowing through me. I feel like it reaches every part of my sinews. It touches the parts of me that no one sees. It speaks to my inner being. It is just so freeing. It's Jack at the front of the Titanic. It's that one. It's that moment,
So you're Jack at the front of the Titanic.
Yeah.
With the wind rushing over your hair and your arms sort of drawn back and your heart wide open.
Yes, that reckless abandon. It's like I'm in the safest place I could ever be. That's a great feeling to have. A great experience to have. And I often think to myself, I just cannot fathom doing life without God. I just can't fathom it. I can't fathom doing my work. I can't fathom being a good dad. I can't fathom being a husband. I can't fathom, serving in the many capacities I've been able to. I can't fathom leading in those capacities without that gentle, sometimes firm, sometimes a whisper, sometimes it shouts really loudly, direction, comfort, guidance, and good advice.
Thomas Wynne, thank you so much for your openness, your honesty, and your vulnerability. And thank you for joining me today on Where Do You Find God?
Thank you. I appreciate the time. Love you to just share space with you.
Tune in every Wednesday afternoon at 4:30 on Sanctuary, or listen and subscribe via your favourite podcast platform and give us a review so others can find us.